Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. My name's Chris Mentor. I'm a delivery director for Naked Data. We're a Palo partner based in Australia. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Kevin Seal from Grid for inviting me here today to present a few stories from some of our clients in Australia. So a very quick slide on Naked Data. We were formed in 2009. We're a business intelligence, performance management, professional services company. So all we do is implement business intelligence tools, and Palo is our flagship BI suite that we implement for our customers. Our headquarters are in Melbourne, Australia. We've got another office in Sydney, and we've got customers throughout Southeast Asia, Australia and New Zealand. And currently we've got 9 dedicated Palo consultants in Australia. So today I want to talk to you about in Australia we have a term which is working at the coalface. I'm sure you've got something equivalent here in Canada, and what it really means is if you're working at the coalface of something, you're actually working, dealing with real problems and issues, instead of just talking about them in an abstract way. And really what I'd like to share with you today is some of the stories from the people that I'm in contact with day in, day out. The people and organisations that are absolutely at the coalface, the data coalface of these organisations, processing information and being able to present data in a way that drives decision making in businesses and makes a real big difference to those companies. So we tend to call those people data champions in organisations. And what data champions really are, they're the people that sit between the data contributors in the organisation, source systems, and the consumers of that data. Now, the consumers and the contributors sometimes can be the same people, line managers, commercial managers, for example, or the data consumers could be the CEO, that could be the board, that could be another management team. And the point of the data champion is to take that data, synthesize it in such a way, and present it in a format that is easily digestible to make real decisions that's going to drive a company forward. Data champions can include many different types of people in an organisation. It's just not one demographic, I suppose. Typically you find, from my experience, those people are either management or financial accountants that are passionate about the data and numbers in their organisation. They can be commercial managers who are responsible for particular operational divisions of a business. They can also be business analysts, just in a certain department, a business analyst who's at that data coalface day in, day out, assisting the decision-making process. They can even be chief financial officers. We've got a number of those as customers in Australia that are literally roll their sleeves up and get involved in that data themselves, believe it or not. So what I'd like to share for you today is a couple of stories around some customers of ours in completely different industries. One of the things that I find very exciting about Palo, and right from the beginning that really excited me about the tool, is that it's a very horizontal tool. It can go across any particular vertical or industry and solve any problem in these industries, data problems, because essentially what you'll see as we're going through this, people have the same problems, whether they're working in one industry or another, typically around data. So the couple of stories I'm going to share with you today, one's around a medical company, one's around an industrial and manufacturing company, warehouse and retail planning, and retail fashion merchandise. So we have a customer of ours in Australia called Fresenius Medical Care. They're a global multinational, but actually, believe it or not, based out of Germany. The division we're working with is the Asia Pacific division, and they're headquartered in Hong Kong. And at the coalface, in this particular instance, was a business analyst. He was responsible for collecting survey data from 27 countries in the region. Now, this just wasn't any survey data. This data was performance-related data that formed the basis for all pay rises for all staff in the Asia Pacific region. So it was very, very important data to the staff in the company, as well as obviously the management team to get right, get accurate, and make sure the data's on time. Our business analyst started the job and he inherited a very, very complex spreadsheet model, which really limited his capability to do consolidations of that data. Iteration as well. Iteration was very important in this process, which you'll see in a minute. And apart from all of that, he was very much hamstrung by network latency. In this particular company, they use a very large ERP, which will remain nameless, that hogged all the bandwidth of the company, and no one could really even open any Office document, let alone anything else, without a long time for it to take. So he had a big issue with speed and performance for the actual surveys. So here's a map of Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific. Our analyst was up in Hong Kong. So, for example, he would send a survey out, in this case to the Sydney office, and the Sydney office would fill out the survey. It was around between 800 and 1,000 questions that had to be answered on the survey. It was a quarterly survey process, and there would be many iterations. So he'd send it out, he'd give them a call, like talk through it. The survey would come back. There would be a lot of things that have to be put in context, numbers change, etc. And that process would go around 12, 13, 24, 25 times until the numbers were correct that he could then slot into the major performance review report. However, unfortunately his job didn't stop there, because it was every single country, 27 countries in the Asia Pacific region, he did the exact same job with, which was extremely laborious and caused a lot of Excel hell for our analyst friend. The data contributors were very frustrated because it wasn't their full-time job. They had to provide it quarterly, but it was taking a huge amount of time. It was very stressful because they knew how important it was personally to get the numbers right, because their pay rises were going to be based on it. And the data consumers, so the managers who were making those executive decisions about who to give pay rises to, were frustrated because the data was never on time. It took a long time to collect and get together. So what do we do here? We assisted this business analyst to deliver a Palo web deployed solution. So using Palo Suite over the web, you've seen that today. And essentially they had the whole survey on the web. Everything was driven by data validation with drop lists. We also used rules in there to calculate tolerance levels between certain questions to make sure the answers people were putting were within a certain range for numeric values. We also built a customised document management system for them inside Palo. So what that enabled them to do is to attach documents to individual questions in that survey to justify their responses to that question. So if people wanted to attach Word documents or Excel spreadsheets, they could do so very, very easily. We also built in a submission workflow. So that enabled our business analyst to actually monitor who started the survey, how far along they were, had it been completed, had it been reviewed by the management team, and was it accepted or rejected for final publication. And finally, to get around our latency issue, we managed to sidestep the IT infrastructure issues by deploying to Amazon EC2 Cloud in Singapore. This had a huge benefit for the end users. It gave them instant access, it was very fast, and made it a much more pleasurable system for them to use. So at the end of the day, what we got here was performance increases were a lot more accurate, they were a lot more on time, and everyone was a lot more happier. The contributors were happier, they were being able to do it a lot quicker. The consumers of that data were happier, they could make decisions a lot quicker, the executive team, and our business analyst was extremely over the moon. So here's a couple of screenshots of some of the screens there. So up the top there, very simple web-based table to show the workflow, where the managers had started, whether they'd submitted their surveys, whether they'd been accepted or rejected. The management team could have a little screen here to approve certain surveys that had been completed. And this here, you can see all the different countries listed down here, and whether they've been submitted, who'd submitted it, the time they'd submitted it, who'd approved it, and when they'd approved it. And then over the left here was our little document management screen, which they could actually choose a file locally off their hard drive or off the network and load up into the model very, very cleanly and easily. So that was the system. The next experience I'd like to share with you is switching gears completely, is to a company which is a customer of ours in Australia called Campbell's Arnott's. And they manufacture biscuits. They came to us with a problem. They had at the coalface here was a production line accountant. So this guy literally had his white gown and his shower cap on, and he'd sit literally next to the production line as things were going. And his job was building costing models to actually understand how much certain products costed from a manufacturing perspective to manufacture these things. He was starting to get extremely worried because he knew that there was a major investment decision that was coming up, and the company was relying on him to provide accurate costing information to justify a $20 million investment in new ovens for the plant. Okay? It was a big investment for the company. It was over 5 years, and they were only going to do it if the costing model said that it was going to be a viable option. So the problem our production line accountant had was he was burdened by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of linked spreadsheets. So what he effectively had was a single spreadsheet per product that was manufactured. And that spreadsheet basically gave the recipe, how to make the product. It gave all the inputs, all the input costs for everything. And it was quite a complex spreadsheet that caused a lot of issues trying to consolidate those spreadsheets and model iterations. So if you wanted to change central drivers like the cost of flour or the cost of sugar in the model, it was very hard for him to do it. He had to open up 300 spreadsheets, change each assumption in every one, save it, and then try to run his consolidated report again, which took a long, long time to run.